Where are we? Well, we are right at the event. We are right at the location, of course, not only of the Sermon on the Mount, which is an amazing sermon, but we're also at the location where the events of John chapter 21 happen. Let's review just a tiny bit. Peter says to Jesus, even though everyone may forsake you, not me. You can count on me, Lord. I'm Peter. You know. And all those yellow bellies can run away and do whatever they want, but not me. Remember that?
Yeah.
Okay. Then he did it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. We're at the event. We're at the location. You're looking at the location behind me where Jesus came looking for Peter in John chapter 21 after the resurrection. After Peter had blown it. Now, I don't know if you've ever blown it so bad that you felt like an outcast. Have you ever done that?
Yes.
I did it in high school. My behavior was worse than atrocious. And I finally got so on the nerves of my homeroom teacher in high school, Mrs. Rice, I remember her, that she had me transferred out of her homeroom, and everybody in that homeroom were kids I had gone to elementary school with and junior high school with. You know, these were the people I knew. This was my community. She hated me. And she had me transferred out of B301, which was my homeroom, down to E-Wing in Woodrow Wilson High School, Portsmouth, Virginia. Now, E-Wing was a rough place. E-Wing is where all the guys majoring in shop. E-Wing, in fact, most of the people in E-Wing in my high school could vote. You understand what I'm saying? And so she transferred me down there, and I knew nobody. And I came walking in, you know, and you know, it shook me up. It was bad. It was really bad. And every time I walked in my homeroom down there, it was like a neon sign flashing right over the door. Solomon, you're a failure. Solomon, you're a failure. That's what you're doing over here. Solomon, you are a failure. Well, Peter felt that way. And that's why Peter left and came back here, his home area, and went back to fishing. Because he said, you know, there's no way I can serve the Lord after denying him 3 times. My ministry career is over. My relationship with Jesus is over. I wouldn't blame him if he never wanted to talk to me again. Peter, you're a failure. Peter, you're a failure. And so Jesus comes here where Peter has gone back to fishing looking for it. All right? And don't you love the fact who came looking for who? Isn't that beautiful? That Peter didn't come looking for Jesus. Jesus came looking for him. You know, same thing's true in the garden. Adam didn't go looking for God. God came looking for Adam after he had sinned, right? And that's normal because when we sin, our natural tendency as human beings is to stay away from God. He's a holy God, you know, and God comes looking for us. How sweet is that? So he comes looking for Peter, and here's what happened. Let me read it to you. Afterwards, I'm in John 21, Jesus appeared again to his disciples by the Sea of Tiberias. Isn't it? Okay, good. It happened this way. Simon Peter, Thomas, Nathanael, who were all from Cana in Galilee, we're in Galilee, and the sons of Zebedee, James and John, and 2 other disciples were together. I'm going to go out and fish, Simon Peter told them, and they said, we'll go with you. So they went out and got in the boat, but that night they caught nothing. So Peter, poor guy, not only is he a failure as a disciple, he's a failure as a fisherman. Poor guy. He must have been at the bottom, just feeling terrible about himself. Early in the morning, Jesus stood on the shore, and the disciples did not immediately recognize it was Jesus, and he called out to them and said, friends, do you have any fish? And they said, no. He said, throw your net on the right side of the boat and you'll find some. Now, if they were close enough to hear him, it meant they were in shallow water. You don't catch fish here in shallow water. You do it out in the deeper water. But when they did throw the net out in the shallow water, they were unable to haul the net in because of the large number of fish. Then the disciple whom Jesus loved, John, right, said to Peter, "It is the Lord." Because it was a miracle. They all knew it had to be Jesus. And as soon as Peter heard it, he wrapped his outer garment around his waist and jumped into the water. And the other disciples followed him in the boat, towing the net full of fish. For they were not far from shore, about 100 yards. And when they landed, they saw a fire, burning coals, and the fish on it, and some bread. And Jesus said, "Bring some of the fish you have caught." And Simon Peter climbed aboard and dragged the net ashore. It was full of large fish, 153, but even with so many fish, the net was not torn or broken. Now listen, if you're making this up, nobody makes up a number like 153. If you're making this up, you say 150 or 175 or 300. Not 153. You only say 153 if you were there counting these stinking fish one at a time. You know, that's how, of course this really happened. John was right there as it happened. And 153, and Jesus said, "Bring some fish that you just caught." And then he said, "Sit down and have breakfast." And so they sat down together and they ate with Jesus. And this happened after he was raised from the dead. So this is the glorified Lord here. And when they had finished eating, they had a conversation. I love this conversation. Jesus said to Peter, "Simon, do you love me more than these?" Now what's he referring to? What's Jesus referring to? Well, he's referring back to when Peter said, "Hey, you can count on me. I'm Peter. All these yellow bellies may run away from you, but not me." Remember? So Jesus says to him, "Okay, Simon, do you really love me more than the other disciples?" And what is looming right behind this question? Well, Peter's failure is looming right behind this question. And he said, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." And Jesus said, "Feed my lambs." What's Jesus doing here? He's calling Peter back into ministry. Right. And again Jesus said, "Simon, son of John, do you truly love me?" And Peter answered, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." And Jesus said, "Take care of my sheep." And a third time Jesus said to him, "Simon, do you love me?" And Peter's feelings were hurt because Jesus asked him the third time, "Do you love me?" And he said, "Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you." And Jesus said, "Feed my sheep." Calling him back into ministry. Okay? In fact, Jesus is saying to him here, "Look, Peter, you failed. Okay? You blew it, Peter. And not only did you blow it, but I'm going to write it in the Bible so everybody in history knows that you blew it, Peter. But I still love you, Peter. I came looking for you. And you're still useful to me, Peter. Yeah, you may have blown it, unbelievably. But you know what? I don't love you because you perform right, Peter. You didn't perform right. Okay, that's not why I love you. And you don't have to perform perfectly to be my disciple and serve me. Your people's relationship with me, Peter, you need to learn, is not based on them having perfect performance. My relationship with people is based upon the fact I love you. Because I love you. Because I love you. And not because you perform right. Because you didn't perform right. But that's okay. I still love you and I can still use you. There was a huge difference between the gospel of the rabbis and the gospel of Jesus. Here was the gospel of the rabbis. If you act right, and think right, and look right, and eat right, and tithe right, and smell right, and hang out with the right people, and do what we tell you to do, we'll love you. And if you don't, we won't. That's the gospel of the rabbis. Folks, Jesus never offered us the gospel of the rabbis. Praise the Lord for that. Jesus' gospel says, I don't care how you act, I don't care how you eat, I don't care whether you tithe, I don't care who you hang out with, and I don't care whether you always get it right, I love you. And I'll always love you. And I love you because